Your neighbors are going to pull into their driveway this September and just sit there for a second, engine off, not moving, staring at your yard, and you are going to be inside making a sandwich, completely unbothered because you made one smart decision this June that they still haven't figured out. 10 perennials, 1 month. A yard so full of color, so alive, so completely self-sufficient that people slow their cars down on your street to get a better look. These plants come back every year. They multiply while you sleep. They laugh at heat, shrug at drought, and genuinely do not need you the way your other plants do. And if you think June is too late to get started, I am about to prove to you that for these specific plants, June is not late. June is exactly right. So let's stop wasting time. Here is exactly what to plant right now. Drop a comment before we go any further. Tell me what state or zone you are gardening in and whether your yard right now looks more like a magazine photo or a crime scene. I read every single one, and your zone is going to matter a lot as we go through this list because the plants coming up are specifically chosen for summer planting success across American growing conditions. Drop it below. Let's get into it. Plant 1. Purple Coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. You have seen this plant. You have driven past it on roadsides from Illinois to Georgia. You have watched it grow in untouched fields through August heat waves that killed everything else within a 50-foot radius. And then you have gone home and spent $40 on annual flowers that were dead by Labor Day. That cycle ends today. Echinacea purpurea is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. Large, daisy-like flowers in vivid purple-pink with a raised, spiky copper-orange center that catches afternoon light in a way that genuinely stops people mid-conversation. Blooms from midsummer all the way through fall, exactly when most other gardens have already given up and gone brown and sad. When your neighbor's flower beds look like they lost a battle with August, yours is hitting its visual peak. Here is what most gardening content glosses over entirely. Echinacea roots go deep. We are talking 12 to 18 inches of downward root development in an established plant. Those roots are physically reaching past the dry surface layer and finding moisture that shallow-rooted annuals cannot touch. That is not luck. That is engineering. A plant that has spent millions of years developing exactly the architecture it needs to thrive in the conditions of the American interior does not need you hovering over it with a watering can every 3 days. Plant it, water it in well that first week, and then largely leave it alone. It spreads 2 ways. Self-seeding is the primary mechanism. The seed heads that form after blooming drop viable seeds that germinate the following spring with 0 intervention from you. Secondly, the crown gradually expands outward each season. By year 3, what you planted as a single potted plant is now a substantial multi-stemmed clump producing dozens of flowers simultaneously. Here is the part that makes this plant genuinely exceptional in a late-season garden. Leave the seed heads standing after frost. Do not cut them down in your fall cleanup. American goldfinches eat echinacea seeds obsessively from October through January. You are running a free wildlife feeding station while your neighbors are spending $30 on bags of processed birdseed that they have to remember to refill every week. Look for Magnus, which gives you the largest flowers and the most upright stems of any standard cultivar. Or Cheyenne Spirit, a mix that produces red, orange, yellow, white, and purple blooms all from the same seed packet, giving a naturalistic sweep of color that looks professionally designed without actually requiring a professional or a design. One honest note. Echinacea takes a full season to fully establish. The first year it is focused entirely underground. Year 2 is when it starts performing. Year 3 is when the neighbors start asking questions. Plant it this June and you are making a 3-year investment that pays dividends indefinitely. Plant 2, Rudbeckia, the black-eyed Susan. Yes, this plant made the April list. It deserves to be on this list too because here is something that video did not fully address. Rudbeckia, planted in June in warm soil with established summer heat, catches up to April planted specimens faster than almost any other perennial you can name. The warm soil actually accelerates root development in a way that cool spring soil cannot. June is legitimately one of the best months to put this plant in the ground. Rudbeckia fulgida is hardy in zones 3 through 9. Golden yellow petals around a near black central cone. Blooms from July through October without stopping, without fading, without asking you for a single thing beyond the rain that is already falling anyway. This is one of approximately 4 plants on Earth that genuinely looks better in late summer than it did in June, because the colony expands and the flower count multiplies as the season progresses. Plant Goldsturm specifically, not the generic species. Not whatever unlabeled Rudbeckia is cheapest at the big box store. Goldsturm. University of Georgia and Penn State Trial Gardens have both documented this cultivar outperforming the standard species in bloom duration, flower count, and overall plant health under American growing conditions. That is not catalog copy, that is replicated research across multiple institutions. By year 2, a single June planting expands into a clump visibly larger than what you started with. By year 3, you have a sweeping colony producing so many flowers that cutting bouquets for every room in your house still leaves the garden looking full. Plant 3, Salvia nemorosa, woodland sage. Most people have never planted this, and the gardeners who do plant it absolutely refuse to tell their neighbors what it is. Experienced border gardeners treat it like a trade secret. Tall spikes of intense blue-violet flowers rising above neat, compact mounds of aromatic gray-green foliage from June straight through August, and then again in September if you do one specific thing I will tell you in a moment. Salvia nemorosa is hardy in zones 4 through 8. Caradonna is the cultivar you want, with the darkest, most electric purple-black stems and the most vertical flower spikes of any variety in this species. It photographs like a dream and it performs even better in person. Here is the one thing you need to do. When the first flush of blooms starts to look tired, around mid-July, cut the entire plant back by 1/3, not to the ground, 1/3. Give it 3 weeks. It comes back with a completely fresh set of flower spikes that carry the garden through to October. 2 full rounds of that extraordinary color from one planting in a single season. Professional landscape designers who charge $200 an hour have been using this trick for decades. Deer do not touch it. Rabbits walk past it. The aromatic oils in the foliage are strong enough to send both species in a completely different direction without any intervention from you. If deer have been eating your garden down to the soil year after year, Salvia nemorosa is part of the solution you have been searching for. It pairs with everything. Next to orange Echinacea, the color contrast is electric. In front of ornamental grasses, the vertical spikes create structure that designers spend significant money trying to replicate with less reliable plants. It is genuinely difficult to place this plant somewhere it does not look intentional and considered. Plant 4. Agastache Hyssop. This one surprises people every single time they encounter it in a garden. Not because it is the loudest or most dramatic plant on this list, but because of what happens around it. You walk past a mature Agastache clump in July, and the air around it is alive in a way that is almost startling. Hummingbirds work it from dawn to mid-morning. Swallowtails spend entire afternoons on it. Native bees that you have never seen before in your yard show up and stay all season. Agastache is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 10, which covers the vast majority of the continental United States. Tubular flowers in orange, coral, purple, and blue depending on the cultivar, rising above strongly aromatic mint-scented foliage that deer absolutely will not eat. Blue Fortune is the most reliable and widely available variety, with soft blue-purple flowers from June through September. Kudos Coral and Kudos Ambrosia both produce warm orange and peachy tones that look stunning against cool blue flowers in a mixed border. Here is the horticultural fact that most gardening videos never mention. Agastache is native to dry, rocky slopes and open meadows across North America and Mexico. Its root architecture is specifically optimized for low-water, high-heat conditions. Planted in rich, well-amended soil and it underperforms. Planted in average to poor, well-draining soil and it thrives on neglect in a way that seems almost rude to other plants that require actual attention. If you have a hot, dry area with average soil where everything else has failed, this is the plant for that spot. It self-seeds readily. Deadhead spent flowers regularly through summer if you want to prolong blooming. Leave them at the end of the season and you will find new seedlings the following spring in the cracks between pathway stones, at the edges of your border in spots you never even considered planting. CTA right here before we go further. 5 plants in, and I want to ask you something genuinely. How many times have you planted something in June thinking it was too late in the season only to watch it struggle all summer and limp into fall looking half dead? That is not a June problem. That is a wrong plant problem. The right plant planted in June does not just survive, it establishes, performs, and comes back stronger every single year after that. If this list is already changing how you think about summer planting, subscribe right now before we go one plant further, not at the end, now. Hit that subscribe button and the bell so this kind of information actually finds you every week. The gardeners who subscribe in the middle of a video are the ones who come back. They are the ones whose yards look different 2 seasons from now. Be that gardener. Plant 5, Coreopsis, Tickseed. A plant that blooms for 5 months straight in colors that look almost too saturated to be real. That is not marketing. That is just what Coreopsis does in American gardens, and the fact that more people are not planting it in June specifically is something I genuinely do not understand. Coreopsis verticillata moonbeam is hardy in zones 3 through 9. Soft, creamy, pale yellow flowers the size of quarters, covering a fine-textured mounding plant from June straight through October with almost no deadheading required. The flowers just keep coming. Zagreb is a deeper, more vivid golden yellow with the same incredible bloom duration. Both spread reliably through clump expansion and self-seeding without ever becoming the kind of aggressive spreader that causes problems in a well-managed border. Coreopsis planted in June in warm soil can go from transplant to full bloom in as little as 3 to 4 weeks. That speed is unusual for a perennial, and it makes this plant particularly valuable when you are trying to fill gaps left by spring plants that have finished and faded. Drought tolerance, once established, is exceptional. Coreopsis evolved on dry Eastern American slopes and coastal plains where summer moisture is unpredictable at best. A mature clump handles 2 to 3 weeks without rain, without visible stress. For gardeners in the south or southwest where summer watering restrictions are a real concern, this performance matters enormously. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring. One established clump gives you 5 to 8 divisions. At nursery prices of $10 to $15 per plant, one morning with a garden fork converts into $75 worth of free plants. That math works out every single time. Plant 6, Penstemon digitalis, Foxglove Beardtongue. Most American gardeners have never heard of this plant. The experienced gardeners who grow it do not bring it up unprompted because they enjoy the quiet satisfaction of having the most interesting thing in the border and not explaining it to anyone who asks. Penstemon digitalis is one of the genuinely underused native perennials available to American gardeners right now. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, tall stems often reaching 3 to 4 feet, carrying clusters of tubular white to pale pink flowers with dark interior markings in June and July. The variety Husker Red adds an additional dimension. The foliage itself is deep burgundy red, creating color and structure even before the flowers open and continuing long after they finish. Hummingbirds find Penstemon with a speed and reliability that suggests they have a map. The tubular flower shape is biologically matched to hummingbird build dimensions, and a single established clump in full bloom will have visiting hummingbirds multiple times per day throughout June and July. It is extraordinarily forgiving of difficult conditions. Average to poor soil, full sun to partial shade, moderate drought once established, high summer heat, all of these conditions which would stress or kill most flowering perennials, Penstemon digitalis handles with indifference. Plant it in June and let it settle in. By August of its first year, the foliage alone is contributing genuine structure and color to the border. By year 2, it is one of the most visually distinctive plants you own. Self-seeds modestly. Produces enough offspring to slowly expand a planting over several seasons, but not so aggressively that it becomes a management problem. This is the well-behaved spread that every gardener actually wants. Plant 7, Kniphofia, red-hot poker. There is one plant on this entire list that will make someone walking past your yard stop mid-step, turn around and actually look twice because they cannot immediately identify what they are seeing. This is that plant. Kniphofia, commonly called red-hot poker or torch lily, is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 9. Upright flower spikes rising 2 to 4 feet above strappy evergreen foliage, tipped with tightly packed tubular flowers that graduate from deep coral red at the top through orange to pale yellow at the base. The visual effect is of a torch frozen in time, and it is genuinely unlike almost anything else growing in American residential gardens. Most people have simply never seen it before. That is precisely why it belongs on this list. The variety flamenco is the most widely available and most reliable performer across American growing zones, producing that classic torch coloration on compact, wind-resistant stems. Mango popsicle and Poco yellow offer softer yellow and orange tones for gardeners who want the drama without the intensity of the full red to yellow flame. Plant in June in full sun and well-draining soil. Poor drainage is the one condition that will actually damage this plant, particularly over winter. If your soil holds water, amend with coarse grit or build a raised bed above the problem area. Get the drainage right, and Kniphofia is one of the most maintenance-free perennials you will ever grow. It blooms in June and July in most zones. Some varieties rebloom in late summer. The spent flower stalks can be removed as they fade, but the foliage remains attractive through the entire season and through winter in zones 7 and warmer. Hummingbirds treat a mature Kniphofia planting like a personal feeding station. The tubular flowers on an established clump can have multiple hummingbirds working simultaneously, hovering at different heights along the same spike. Plant 8, Gaillardia, blanket flower. This plant grows in Kansas. It grows in coastal Georgia. It grows in New Mexico and in Ohio, and in both directions along every sun-exposed roadside median where highway departments planted it specifically because it requires absolutely nothing from the maintenance crews after year 1. If that single fact does not communicate everything about how unstoppable this plant is, nothing will. Gaillardia x grandiflora is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 10. Daisy-shaped flowers in concentric rings of deep burgundy red fading to vivid orange and bright golden yellow at the petal tips, centered on a raised dark brown sphere. The color combination looks almost hand-painted. It is one of the warmest, most saturated color combinations available in the perennial world, and it blooms continuously from June through the first hard frost without slowing down. Goblin is the most compact and most widely available cultivar, topping out around 12 to 14 inches with the classic red and yellow bicolor flowers. Arizona Sun produces the largest individual flowers. Both bloom relentlessly. Both tolerate heat, drought, and poor soil with a cheerfulness that most plants reserve for ideal conditions. Here is the specific performance characteristic that makes Gaillardia exceptional for June planting. In warm summer soil, a transplanted Gaillardia can reach full bloom within 4 to 6 weeks. You plant it in early June, and by the 4th of July you have a full performance plant covered in flowers. The timing is almost suspiciously good. It is short-lived as perennials go, typically 3 to 5 years before a clump begins to decline. The solution is equally simple. Divide every 2 to 3 years, keep the young outer portions of the clump, discard the woody center, and replant. Each division resets the clock. The plant perpetuates itself indefinitely. One note: rich, heavily amended soil makes Gaillardia floppy and weak and shortens its lifespan noticeably. Average to poor, fast-draining soil makes it bloom longer, stand taller, and live for more seasons. This is a plant that specifically rewards you for not overcomplicating its care. Neglect is not just acceptable, it is optimal. Plant 9. Helenium, Sneezeweed. The name is a problem. Whoever decided to call one of the most spectacular late summer blooming perennials in North America Sneezeweed set back its popularity by decades. The name comes from historical use as a snuff ingredient, not from any actual effect on sinuses, and the sooner we stop letting an unfortunate common name keep this extraordinary native plant out of American gardens, the better everyone's yards will look. Helenium autumnale is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Daisy-like flowers with reflexed, downward-swept petals in the most intensely warm color range available in any perennial you can grow: deep mahogany red, burnished copper, blazing amber, pure gold, and bicolors that look like someone turned up the saturation in a photo editor. Moorheim Beauty is the classic dark copper-red variety. Sahin's early flowerer gives you an extended orange-yellow bloom that starts in July and runs through September. Both are exceptional. Both will absolutely stop people in their tracks. Helenium blooms August through October in most zones, which makes it one of the most strategically valuable plants on this list. The gap between summer and fall is where most gardens look thin and tired. Helenium steps directly into that gap with more color saturation and more visual impact than nearly any other plant available for that window. Pinch the stems back by half in late May or early June. One cut. The plant responds by branching more aggressively, producing more flower stems, and holding a more compact shape that does not need staking. Skip this step and you get a tall plant that flops open in wet summer weather. Do it and you get a dense, self-supporting mound of color that looks planted by someone who genuinely knew what they were doing. It spreads through clump expansion and is easy to divide every 3 years. Native bees and butterflies work Helenium extensively in late summer when other nectar sources are becoming scarce and pollinators need reliable late-season fuel before temperatures drop. Plant 10. Liatris spicata, Blazing Star. Every plant on this list has earned its place through summer performance. This one earns its place by doing something no other plant does. It blooms from the top of the flower spike down rather than from the bottom up. That is not a minor quirk. It is a visual effect so distinctive and so unexpected that people who see it for the first time in an established garden consistently ask what it is. Liatris spicata is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Tall vertical spikes, often reaching 24 to 30 inches, covered in densely packed rose-purple florets that open progressively from the tip downward through July and August. The effect is of a slow, graceful unrolling of color. When you plant a grouping of 5 or 7, the spikes at different stages of bloom create a layered, constantly evolving display that holds visual interest for 6 to 8 weeks straight. Cobalt is the most compact and reliably self-supporting variety at 18 to 24 inches. Alba is a clean white that pairs extraordinarily well with deep purple salvias and warm orange echinacea. Both are proven performers from Zone 4 to Zone 8. Monarch butterflies treat Liatris like a compass heading. Research from Monarch Watch documents this native plant as a critically important nectar source during late summer migration, specifically on the central and eastern flyways that funnel monarchs from the northern breeding grounds toward Mexico. If you have ever wanted to see a monarch butterfly land in your yard and actually stay, not just pass through, a grouping of Liatris in late July is one of the most reliable ways to make that happen. It grows from a corm, not from fibrous roots like most perennials, which makes it exceptionally tolerant of summer heat and dry spells once established. The corm stores water and nutrients the way a bulb does, giving the plant a buffer that purely root-dependent plants do not have. Plant it in June in full sun, water it in well for the first 2 weeks, and then step back. It does not need or want intensive care. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring by carefully separating the corm offsets that develop around the original. Each offset is a complete, viable plant ready to grow and bloom. One original planting becomes 5 to 7 free plants within 4 seasons. Rule 2. Mulch after planting but not over the crown. A 2 to 3 inch layer of shredded bark or wood chip mulch around your new June plantings does 3 things simultaneously. It retains the soil moisture that summer-planted perennials need during establishment. It suppresses the weed competition that would otherwise steal water and nutrients from plants trying to root in, and it moderates soil temperature fluctuations during heat waves, keeping the root zone more stable than bare soil plantings during the hottest weeks of the year. Keep mulch a couple of inches back from the actual crown of the plant so moisture does not accumulate there and cause rot. Rule 3. Do not fertilize in the first season. Every plant on this list is specifically adapted to average soil conditions. Pushing a newly planted native or drought-adapted perennial with high nitrogen fertilizer causes rapid, soft, weak growth that is more susceptible to pest damage, disease, and summer stress than slow, naturally developed growth. Let the plant establish at its own pace. In year 2 and beyond, a single application of balanced, slow-release fertilizer in early spring is sufficient for most of these plants and genuinely optional for all of them. You just invested real time learning 10 plants that will change what your yard looks and feels like for years to come without requiring you to restart every spring and spend money you do not need to spend. That is a real plan, built around real plant biology and real American growing conditions, not generic advice written to apply to everyone and therefore useful to no one. Before you close this video, 2 things. Subscribe right now if you haven't already and hit the bell so the next video actually reaches you. This channel puts out content at exactly this level every single week. Real zone-specific information, real plant biology, real guidance that changes how your outdoor space performs and saves you money doing it. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning of this video are already ahead. Join them right now. And before you go, drop one comment below. Tell me which plant from this list you are putting in the ground first, and tell me what zone or state you are gardening in. I read every comment, I respond to as many as I can, and your answers directly shape the videos I make next. This is your garden. This is your season. June is open right now. Go plant something.